In this video we are going to take a look at the Deathwatch Teleportarium stratagem and its interaction with the most recent FAQ to the core rules. I have seen this question pop up on various platforms, including my own comment section. Over the course of the video I will present my take on when the stratagem can be used and what the implications are for combat squads. To spice things up, I also have two challenges for you guys.
Welcome to SwissHammer, your channel for modeling in Warhammer 40k. My name is Tammer and I will be guiding you through this video.
Starting right away with the first challenge, how would you explain to someone what the Teleportarium stratagem does? No cheating and looking it up, guys. Give it a thought for a moment and we will look it up together in just a moment. Ready? Alright, let's go. Use this stratagem during deployment. Select one Deathwatch infantry, dreadnought or biker unit from your army. All models in that unit gain the teleport strike ability. The rest then points out how many times you can use it. The important takeaway here is that all the usage of the Teleportarium stratagem does is adding the teleport strike ability to all models in a unit. I'm specifically stressing this point because it is paramount for its interaction with the core rules. What this means is that the models basically get the teleport strike ability added to their datasheets. I am showing the Deathwatch Terminators here as an example of a model that already comes with this ability by default. The teleport strike ability then further states that the unit can be set up in a teleportarium chamber instead of setting it up on the battlefield. What this means for our teleportarium stratagem is that it's not the stratagem itself that puts the models into the teleportarium chamber, but using the teleport strike ability itself. Using the ability itself is optional, so even if you were to use the stratagem, you could still deploy the models normally and let the CP go to waste. With that out of the way, moving on to combat squads. Using combat squads breaks up the unit, and the January FAQ to core rules has already established how that is being handled in terms of pre-existing rules effects. Each time this happens, any rules that the original unit was being affected by when it split, and which would continue to affect it for a specific duration, from abilities, stratagems, psychic powers, etc., continue to affect all of the individual units it split into until such a point as they would normally have no longer applied. In case of having gained the teleport strike ability, it does not even matter whether one wants to argue that it counts as an actual ability or as a use of a stratagem. This FAQ entry conveniently covers both cases and says that these continue to apply. The main takeaway here is that in order to maximize how many models are getting the teleport strike ability through using the Teleportarium stratagem, we want to use the stratagem before we use combat squads. The question now is, of course, can it be done? Fortunately, the recent June FAQ finally has an answer to that. As we can see from the first bullet point, a rule that happens at the start of deployment, such as combat squads, is resolved at the start of the declare transport and reserve step of the sequence. As we can see from the second bullet point, a rule that happens during deployment, such as the Teleportarium stratagem, can happen any time between the start of the declare transports and reserve step and the end of the deploy army step. They then further state that the rule itself will provide further details as to exactly when it is being used. In case of the Teleportarium stratagem, there are no further details being mentioned on the stratagem. The FAQ entry then continues by saying that typically if the rule lets you set a unit up in a location that is not the battlefield, blah 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 blah, and proceeds to explain when abilities such as teleport strike and concealed positions are being used. But this brings us back to my original point. Using the Teleportarium stratagem adds an ability, nothing more, nothing less. For the purposes of this second bullet point, the only part that applies is that it can happen any time between the start of the declare transports and reserve step and the end of the deploy army step. In short, just like combat squads, the Teleportarium stratagem can be used at the start of the deployment. So far so good. So which one is being used first? From what I can tell, there is nothing being mentioned anywhere that would imply that one has to be used before the other, meaning that you can pick the order of application. This basically means that we have two options. We can use the Teleportarium stratagem first and then use combat squad second, in which case we end up with both combat squads having the teleport strike ability. Or we can use combat squads first and the Teleportarium stratagem second, in which case only one combat squad of our choosing will have the teleport strike ability. Regardless of which variant you are going for, if you now decide to actually make use of that teleport strike ability, then it happens as stated later on in the second bullet point of the description. A rule such as teleport strike allows a unit to set up in a location that is not on the battlefield and so is resolved in the declare transports and reserve step. This means the only limitation for the Teleportarium stratagem is that we actually have to use it before the end of the declare transport and reserves, because if we were to use it during deploy armies, we could no longer use the teleport strike ability we gained. But as we previously established, we want to use it as early as possible, so this is a non-issue. A mistake I have seen people make is that they point at this teleport strike entry of the FAQ and confuse it with being equal to the Teleportarium stratagem. Using the Teleportarium stratagem is not the same as using teleport strike at all. It adds the ability, it says absolutely nothing about using it. If you want to waste the CP and not use the teleport strike ability you granted through the stratagem, you're absolutely allowed to do that. Maybe some people just hate the CP. With all this covered, we can summarize the whole matter as following. First, using the Teleportarium stratagem adds the teleport strike ability to all models in the unit, nothing more. Second, if we use combat squads, the January FAQ clarifies that the pre-existing rules effects, such as the teleport strike ability, remain in effect. This means in order to maximize the usage of the stratagem, we want to use it first and the combat squad second. Third, we are allowed to do so because the Teleportarium stratagem can be used during deployment, which is being further clarified by the June FAQ. It can be used any time between the start of the declare transports and reserve step and the end of the deploy army step. There are no further limitations on the stratagem itself. Fourth, don't confuse the teleport strike example being mentioned in the FAQ with the Teleportarium stratagem. They are not the same. See point 1. In conclusion, the correct order of application for maximum efficiency is as following. First you use the stratagem, second you do combat squads, and third you actually use the teleport strike ability. So that's it for what I consider the correct application of the Teleportarium stratagem after the June FAQ. Now I am well aware that I still owe you guys the second challenge that I boldly announced at the very beginning of this video. And it is of course whether you find an error in my conclusion. I want to end this video by saying that I care about applying the rules correctly and bringing the correct information to the Deathwatch community. I sincerely mean it when I say that if you think that I'm wrong in my assessment, let me know your take on the rules in the comments, and I'm sure that ultimately we all combined can figure out the correct way to play the stratagem. Finally, I would also like to mention that there is a SwissHammer Facebook page where I will be posting links to my videos as well as articles I find of interest. I do read a lot about the hobby, but not all of it will always end up as its own video. I look forward to seeing you there as well. I do also have a Patreon page. If you like my content, any additional support is greatly appreciated as it helps me invest into future videos. As always, thank you very much for watching guys, your continued support is greatly appreciated. I hope you have been enjoying this video, give me a thumbs up if you did, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again and see you next time.